Hey everybody, how you doing? Welcome to today's very special and hopefully useful session on how to cultivate resilience and a positive mindset, especially when you're going through something as intense as you are currently going through. I mean, this is unprecedented. Nobody's been through anything like this before. And what I want to do in the next 45 minutes is just kind of get into some of the things that you can do to help get through it in a positive way. So I've had a lot of conversations with people over the course of the last week or so, with trying to figure out what on earth is happening and getting more information. And there's just so much uncertainty. They kind of seem like the right thing to do, to come on and try and make some sense of things, or at least kind of give you an opportunity to do that. So I'm just going to talk for a couple of minutes and then we'll get into the session itself, just while people come online. But I just want to say, first of all, thank you for coming here today and being here. This is for the first time I've done a session like this. I was actually due to be in school this week on Tuesday. I was meant to be at my local school here in Tame, Lord William School, where I was going to be giving a resilience talk in an assembly to the year 10 students, as I did last year as well. A lot of work with the school over the last few years. And of course, that didn't happen because school's not happening at the moment. And so I thought, well, what else can I do? How can I still share some of these messages? And that was when I thought that maybe this would be an appropriate thing to do. So I do want to say thank you for being here, because this is just for you guys. This is 100% for you. And I really hope that there is some value that I can add to the mix here. You're the ones who have chosen to be here. You've selected to be here. There's many others, of course, who aren't here, and they could have been, and they've chosen not to. So you're here, and I value that. And I'm really hoping that I can, as I said, add something of value to you. So I'm just going to get going in just a minute or so. And just want to say, first of all, as well, that this is I'm actually not really at the beach at the moment, but I've been doing a lot of webinar and digital delivery of content in the last week or so. I'm actually a speaker and trainer, and so all of the face-to-face work that I've had previously is obviously not going ahead at the moment. So I thought I'd play around with some technology, and I've got myself a green screen, and I'm having some fun with some funky backgrounds as well. I figured, well, instead of just seeing a blank wall or a blue background behind me, let's just create a bit of calm and let's go to the beach for the next 45 minutes or so. So let me just check, see how we're getting on with things. Can go. Let me just pause that there. If you have questions or comments, or you want to, if you want to ask anything, if you want to kind of observe anything, if you want to share how you're getting on, or what your experiences have been so far, then please do use the chat. You should be able to access that quite easily on the page, and then it will pop up on my screen, hopefully. And if there's a question, then I should be able to answer. We can make it an engaged session as well. So okay, let me kick off properly in that case. I think we're just about ready to go. My name is George Anderson, as it says down. I'm a coach, I'm a trainer, I'm a speaker, I'm an author, and all the things that I talk about are about well-being, whether that's physical well-being, which is my background for many years as a personal trainer, and latterly over the last sort of 10, 12 years or so, much more around personal development and the mind. How can we take control of our own minds and kind of make a difference between, or distinguish between the facts, what we've got going on out there, and the meaning that we're making of it. And one of the big things that I really want to impress upon you today is that it's not about what's happening. What's important now is how you respond to it. And I'm not going to sugarcoat this. I'm not going to pretend to you that you just have to think positively, that you just have to suck it up and get on with it, and everything will be fine. Everyone's in the same boat. We'll come on to that particular quote in just a moment. But at the same time, I want to connect things to reality. I don't want this to be just got to think positive and everything will be fine. But I also want to make the point that you can choose, you can influence your response to this situation. And I'm talking exclusively here, or very, very specifically rather, to those of you who were either due to take your GCSE exams, your A-level exams, or if you are in Ireland, and I know that much of my audience is based over in Ireland, your junior or senior Leaving Cert examinations this summer. So you're the audience. This is who I'm talking to in this session. I know there'll be parents watching. I know that there'll be other people watching as well who are at different stages of their educational journeys. But it's you guys. You're the ones that I really want to address here, because having this massive change in your life at this stage here, it's like everything you believed, everything you thought, everything you took for granted almost about what the future held for you has all of a sudden been called into question. Okay, and that's a serious thing to have to deal with. There's a kind of a grief cycle that goes on around this, which I'm not going to get into too much in the session today. But just be aware that it's that the way what you're going through is significant. It's important, and I want to make it clear that I'm not going to play that fact down at any point during the session today. Okay, so I really want to be upfront about that from the beginning. However, having said that, there are things that we can do to help improve the response to it. It's not what happens, it is how you respond. And in fact, resilience, which is one of the things that I said I was going to talk about on the session today, really is it's your ability to bounce back from stress, from adversity, from setbacks, and to positively grow as a result of it. And I want to tell you a quick story about something that's a story that's not my own story. It's a story that I heard from one of the resilience trainers who I did some work with over the course of the last year or so. And she told a story of somebody who she interviewed in the aftermath of 9/11. So obviously massive tragedy, and people trying to make sense of what on earth had happened for many, many days, weeks, months, and years following on from that. And this was in the immediate aftermath. And this lady had, she'd interviewed this lady, this New Yorker, and she was describing the things that she'd lost, which was pretty much everything. She'd lost her job, she'd lost some of her family members, you know, everything had changed. Her whole world had changed. But what she'd also said in this interview was that what she'd found was that she had discovered a tremendous depth of inner strength that she never knew that she had. Right? She never knew that she would be able to get through this and to support so many other people as well around her. She realized that she had this depth of compassion, that she was able to empathize and be strong and be there for other people around her as well. And she didn't know that she had this depth because it had never been called upon before. And so really what I want to talk about today, a lot of is looking at this as it is what it is, and there are facts, there's the information, there's the this is what's happening, but how much of this can you take, and how much of it can you use to positively grow from? Stress in your life is a lot like if you go to the gym, or if you do any sort of physical exercise where you're pushing against a physical resistance, or even going for a run or playing a sport, you break the body down, and then it grows, it gets stronger in the presence of recovery, good nutrition, plenty of sleep, and some stretching. That will help your body to grow. Well, resilience works in the same way, but from a psychological point of view. So you need these stresses. Nobody needs this kind of stress in their life, right? But it's happening, and it can be the resistance against which you press that allows you to grow mentally and emotionally stronger as an individual as well. And this is one of the key precepts that I want to really encourage you to think about. One of the key points that I want you to take away from the session today is that this is a reframing exercise. You can look at it one way, it's just everything's bad, no good's going to come of this. Or you can look at another way and think, well, okay, yes, that's bad. Let's acknowledge that. Let's lean into the suck, the pain, the discomfort that comes with that. But let's also look at what those opportunities are to take forwards into the rest of your life. Because where you are right now, you know, at some point in the future, you'll look back on this and it will be in the past. That's guaranteed. That's just how time works, right? You look back on things that you're going through now that are present, and then it will be in the past. You get to decide, or at least you get to influence, how much of it is going to be positive growth and how much of it is going to push you down. Okay. I do also want to state at this point here that I know that there's going to be a big range of those of you who are watching in terms of your ability to process these ideas and how you're processing what's happening. And there'll be, you know, we talk about mental health a lot. A lot of the work I do is around mental health in a sort of a supportive role. And if you're already suffering and struggling with mental health, you add this on top, then I'm not saying that these things are easy. I'm not telling you that this is just piece of cake. All you got to do is just think positive, reframe this. It could be an opportunity. It's not as simple as that, or it's as simple as that, but it's not as straightforward as that. Like, you need to, it could be that you need to really work at this. You need to take time. You need to get support to help you work through this as well. So kind of keep that in mind, that this is about how do we cultivate resilience. And it's not a done once, then you don't have to think about it again. It's a cultivation. It's a process. So think about going forwards, what you can do, how you can put some of these ideas into practice. Just one other point as well, before I get into some of the actual things that you can do, is that this isn't just about your exams. Right? I'm absolutely fully aware of that. This isn't just the case of, well, your exams have aren't happening, and I know there's still some debate. Once again, fueling that uncertainty. We don't really know exactly what's going to happen yet. There's more information coming at you all of the time. Something else that I want to talk a little bit about to you today. But we don't really know what's happening at the moment with exams. But it's not just about exams. It's not just about that. Like, if you were one of the conversations I had with somebody about his son. He's turning 18 this year, as I imagine many of you are if you're doing your A-levels, your last year of A-levels, and you've got your exams coming up, you finish your A-levels, summer of fun, freedom, before you go off to university or the next phase of your life and move forwards from there. And all of a sudden, this future that you'd imagined for the last however many years just has evaporated. It's just not happening anymore. And it's not just about the exams, it's about everything else that goes with that as well. So it's okay to feel disappointed with that. It's okay to feel frustrated. It's okay to feel angry even. It's okay to feel sad and kind of isolated and lonely. These are the feelings that we don't want to suppress, right? All these things, it's change, it's grief, it's almost unimaginable, certainly for unless you're kind of going through it. Like, this is just such an extreme situation to be in, to find ourselves in as a group, not just as an individual, but everyone's going through it. It's okay to feel all of the feels. Like, don't deny yourself anything. If you're feeling upset, if you're feeling frustrated, then just because we're all in the same boat doesn't mean that you're not allowed to feel the way you feel. Like, and this is an expression that I've heard a lot, and it can give us a bit of a support. It can give us some encouragement. It can make us feel like we're connected through the challenge that we're all living through right now. But at the same time, don't let that "we're all in the same boat" sentiment invalidate how you're feeling, because how you're feeling is how you're feeling. And it's more important than ever to talk to people that you trust about how you're feeling. It's never been more important than it is right now. And just because most other people are going to be struggling and suffering as well, it doesn't mean that you should just stop talking. Okay, it's more important than ever that you do that. And that doesn't mean, by the way, if you're on social media, it doesn't mean putting up a post about how you're feeling on social media and how rubbish everything is. That's not the same thing as having a conversation with somebody who you trust enough to be vulnerable with and who's going to listen to you. Okay, this isn't about having somebody fix this. You got somebody in your life who is like that. Keep my fingers crossed, everything crossed that you do have somebody like that. But if you haven't, then find the relevant kind of sources and resources that you can do online. Samaritans, Mind, there's plenty of charities. Speak to your school, pastoral care, whoever you need to find somebody that you can speak to. And on the flip side of that, if somebody comes to you and talks to you, if they've picked you out of the lineup of all of their friends and they said, I trust you enough to share how I'm feeling and to be vulnerable, please, for goodness sake, please don't just try and tell them how you understand, because you're going through the same thing, or the things that you've lost as well and the challenges that you've got. It's not about you in that sense, in that situation. It's about them. Give them the opportunity to share how they're feeling. And if you think about how that's felt to you in the past, if you've ever done that, if you've ever gone to a friend or somebody and said, oh, I'm struggling with this, and they said, oh, that's nothing, I've got my life's so much worse than yours. It's like one-upmanship, some weird one-upmanship exercise. Like, don't be that person. Be the person who just listens. Ask questions. Be curious. Like, just be the sounding board. You don't have to fix somebody. just need to be there and listen to them, and find 2 or 3 close friends, parents, relatives, whoever it is in your circle, your inner circle that you really trust. Social media can be really helpful to keep us connected, but it can be really harmful as well if we, for example, put up a post about how we're feeling and we don't get the response that we were hoping for, and we're already feeling a little wobbly, then that can fuel those feelings. So just be really mindful of that. But definitely this is about talking and sharing how you're feeling more now than ever. I honestly feel that your generation is so much better at doing this than, I'm 41 years old. Like my generation and people in their 30s and even in their 20s, like you're so much better at doing this. I know there's still work to be done, but honestly, the number of conversations I've had with people who just talk, who have taken the courageous step to talk to their friends or to partners or to other relations and people about how they feel and the difference it makes, just to feel like you've shared it without being judged, it's phenomenal. Now, this is going to be, we've got to stay strong mentally as much as anything. Resilience is about growing and positively growing strongly as a result of living through stressful situations like this. So we have to be robust mentally. And one way to absolutely, that we have to have as a fundamental given is that we're prepared to talk to somebody about how we're feeling. Okay, let's talk then about some of the things that we can do, that you can do, that these are things that I teach all my clients, and I've done a lot of work recently as well with apprentices who are usually between the ages of 16 and 25 years old, so kind of young adults, I'd say. And so you're kind of fitting into this category. You're in a similar situation in terms of your age and where you are. So I know that these techniques will work for you as well. They won't all work. They won't all be appropriate for you. Right? Some of them you'll hear me talk about think, I'm not going to give that a go, or I've tried that in the past, doesn't really work for me. That's okay. Right? You don't have to try and do all of these things. Don't have to take them all on board, but find 1 or 2 of them that you think, okay, I'll give that a go. Have an open mind and just give it a go and just see what difference it makes to how you feel. Because it's about how you feel, not what's happening. It's about how you're responding to it, and how you're responding to it is measured in your emotions, how you're feeling on a moment-by-moment basis, but definitely on a day-by-day basis, and also the conversations that you're having inside of your head. Like, what is it you're saying to yourself? So try these things on for size and see what works for you. So the first thing is around kind of monitoring your own stress and understanding kind of where that comes from. What are the triggers? One of the biggest triggers, and the thing that I want you to really be mindful of right from the start here, is your exposure to the torrent of information that is coming at us all of the time. Like, there's so much information coming at us, whether it's on regular media, if you're in a household that has the radio on and the news channels on all of the time, you're constantly being bombarded with these messages. And it's media works by giving us information, but it's always nuanced and given a bit of a spin. It's generally the bad information, like the worst case scenario. It's generally the things that are happening that aren't great, that could hurt us, that could threaten us, that could harm us. And it just so happens that right now there's a wealth of that kind of information out there. And that's not to say it's been hyped up. Absolutely believe this is something, and all the things we're being told to do, totally, absolutely great. This is truth. This is fact. We have to believe that. But you also need to monitor your exposure to it. You need to monitor how much you are exposing yourself, because if you're constantly being bombarded with this information, then your mind is just being tuned in to the negative. It's being tuned into the problem, and then this becomes the backdrop, the canvas against which everything else is painted. And so small things, because life is still going on. Like you're cooped up at home. You can go out once a day. I'll come on to that in a minute as well. But you're cooped up at home, like you haven't got the same focus as you had previously, and you've got all this information coming at you. So things that would be stressful for you anyway, you're adding on top of this constant barrage of bad news. So just be really mindful of that. Stay connected with what's going on, but don't have those news channels blurting out the bad stuff 24 hours a day, or every moment you're awake. Don't check into the news websites. Don't check into the apps all the time. Like, you will find the information out. Just check in once or twice a day, maybe, so you're on top of what's happening, or not at all. I've got a 12-year-old daughter and two boys, 9 and 7, and they get the week junior. And for the longest time, like that's been where I get most of my media, is the week junior. Don't even read the week, it's the week junior, because it explains things. Right? I don't watch the news. I don't read newspapers. I deliberately have this media fast. I started about 10 years ago and never look back. Now, I'm still more or less up to date with what's happening. I've increased my consumption of media in the last couple of weeks because I feel like I need to know what's going on, but I'm still being very, very mindful and cautious of allowing myself to be overexposed. Because going back to what I said about the stress thing, it's stressful. Like we want to, I know that for me, watching the news makes me feel stressed, makes me feel anxious. I give myself a dose of that, so I'm informed, but then I stop. And I suggest that you do something similar. So find out what your stresses are and ensure that if you've got things like that you can control, then you take control of them. The same thing for social media. Like if you're on social media, if you're on Facebook or Instagram or or TikTok or any of the other social media platforms. I've only put TikTok in there because I thought, well, I've heard of it. I've no idea what it's about. I think it's small video shots, but it's like if you're on TikTok, I'm sure this stuff's going to be kind of getting blurred at you as well. But point being that you're even more exposed to news and information. And it's not even news now, right? It's people's opinions and conjecture and predictions. And my mate Dave from work's mum's cousin's secretary said that the army's going to be moving in. It's going to be like martial law declared. Like, it doesn't matter even if you know logically that these things aren't true or aren't real or haven't been verified. Your emotional centers, your mammalian, your sort of animal instincts in the brain, the part that controls your emotions, these are the parts of the brain that are thinking, oh my goodness, there's massive amounts of threat here. There's massive amounts of stress. We need to respond to this. And that's what creates this response of sending the stress hormones coursing around your body, which is what puts you on edge. So be really mindful with how much exposure you have to social media and mainstream media, and as well people around you who have a tendency to have those kind of conversations, who will be painting pictures of doom and gloom, who will be talking about how bad the situation is. Like, we don't need to know that. We don't need to, unless somebody's actually showing how they're feeling. If it's just the way they talk, then be pleasant, but just kind of move on and just protect yourself. You've got to protect yourself. You've got to protect your mind. So that's the first one. Think about what situations are triggering your stress. Think about the symptoms that you have around stress. Now, what is it that you experience stress as? Is it that you feel anxious? Is it that you find that your appetite goes, or that you get really hungry and you're eating more than you would normally eat? Is it that you find that you've got less tolerance for other people, then you're getting more irritable? Maybe you're not sleeping as well. Now, what are the things that you've identified as being, this is a result of stress? Because there's many different ways to respond to stress. I use food there. Some people will get a massive appetite and eat loads. Some people will really go off their food and not eat very much at all. So there's no one size fits all explanation as to how we respond to stress. So just to feel, and how are you feeling now? How are you behaving now, given the changes in our living situation at the moment? But that's the first thing. And then take steps where you can to protect yourself from overexposure to things that are triggering you. So that kind of leads into the second thing, which is to protect your mind. And protecting your mind doesn't just mean limiting your exposure to triggers, to things that are potentially going to make you feel stressed, and like news, websites, like social media. But it also means rebalancing things. There's something called negativity bias, which is something that human beings have a tendency towards. So negativity bias just means that we are more likely to look at the things that could hurt us, the things that are bad, the mistakes that we make, the criticisms that people have on us, the judgments that people have on us. We're more likely to look at those things than we are the good things and the opportunities and the positives. Like, we're less likely to see those, and for good reason. Like, our ancestors were finally tuned into the things that could kill them. If you think about our caveman and women dwelling people, ancestors traipsing around the savannas, trying to hunt and gather and survive so they can pass their their genes on to the next generation. And if they weren't cautious about every little thing that could hurt or harm them, then they probably got eaten by the saber-toothed tiger, right? And there aren't any saber-toothed tigers out there at the moment. There's different challenges, there's different threats, there's invisible threats. And so we need to be cautious. But at the same time, we've been tuned into more of the negatives than we are the positives. So we need to look at how can we rebalance that, so we're not constantly, our minds aren't constantly filled by the negative stuff. And one way of doing this is through gratitude. And this is an exercise that I really encourage you to do. In fact, you can have a go at doing it right now. It's really simple to do. And it's something that's come out of the world of positive psychology in the last 20 odd years, and has been delivered in many different areas of life around the world, including education, and also including the US military, the army. Over 1 million soldiers were given this exercise that I'm going to share with you to do now. And they did this, and it was funded by the US Army because it was seen as being such a powerful way of helping support their resilience and their robustness, mental toughness, not just their physical toughness, but their mental toughness as well. And it's a great exercise. It's really simple to do. And all I want you to do right now, and ideally, if this is something that you think, okay, I could get on with that, is to do it on a regular basis, like a daily basis. This is a cool thing to do in the evening, just before you go to sleep at night, is to think of 1, 2, or 3 things that went well for you during the day. And that's it. Just think of something that's gone well, something that you've been grateful for, maybe. You know, maybe it is something simple like, you know, you came down in the morning and there was breakfast there for you to eat. Like, be grateful for that, because not everyone's got that. Maybe you've got a loving family. Maybe you've got friends. Maybe you've got the technology that's allowing you to access webinars like this and to FaceTime your friends. Maybe you've got video games at home and you're grateful for having kind of an hour or so to play on that and to tune out from everything else and be kind of mindful with what you're doing. Maybe you're grateful for these things. Maybe you're grateful for noticing the thoughts that you're having, or you recognize the significance of that and to be able to turn them around to something more positive. So whatever it is, it might take a little bit of work to think about this and to come up with this stuff. And in fact, in the military terms, they called it hunt the good stuff. They called it that because they acknowledged that especially if you're living in a war zone, it's not always easy to come up with the good things that are happening in life, right? Because you're surrounded by danger, threat, bad things. So hunt the good stuff. That might be something that works for you right now. It's like you have to really think about this, but do think about it. Try and come up with something right now. Think about one thing that's been good in the last 24 hours. Maybe if you can't come up with anything, just think about this webinar, access to this. And really allow yourself to go back to that time. Like, think about it. Think about how good it felt. Think about how you had that moment of calm or joy or love or feeling cared for or feeling listened to, whatever it was. But go back to that time and really allow yourself to enjoy that and savor that moment, savor those positive emotions, and just do that for a few seconds. And then if you can, don't have to do it now, but come up with maybe 2 or 3 things like that. And just do those things. You can either think them or write them down is a really powerful way of doing this. It takes like 4 or 5 minutes to do, but the studies and the science into this is absolutely unequivocal. It makes a difference to how you feel. This makes a difference to your levels of anxiety. It makes a difference to depressive symptoms as well. So if you know that you or anybody else around you has struggles with mental health, then this is an absolute must to start doing this. Don't expect it to be easy, because there's so much that we're focusing on that's a challenge as well, and this in our life that's a challenge. But try and find these things that are useful, as well, that are positive, and that you are grateful for as well. And start practicing gratitude. It's not just about being grateful, it's about practicing gratitude on a regular and consistent basis. Okay, let's talk next about one of the other real fundamentals that we can do to help us through this, and that is self-care. So self-care is the physical exercise, it's eating good food, it's hydration, it's getting outdoors, it's if you drink things like coffee or energy drinks like Red Bull or Monster, it's kind of limiting those stimulants as well, because physically that's going to make it harder for you to support your mind and your emotional response as well. So the government guidelines have been very, very clear with why we should be leaving the house. a very, very good reason to leave the house. There's only 4 of them. 1 is to go and get essential food supplies. 2 is to go and get essential medical supplies. 3 is if you're going to work, and it's an essential job where you have to be out the workplace. And number 4 is for physical exercise. Like, it's been given that much importance. And you know what? We don't even know if that's going to go on for much longer. It might be that we get told we're not allowed to leave the house at all for exercise either at some point down the line. But for now, make the most of your opportunity to get outside on a daily basis. Take advantage of this. Not because it's good for you in the long run, it's good for your health, it's good for your well-being at some point in the future. This isn't about weight loss or health or anything like that. This is about supporting yourself right now. And resilience requires these pockets of strategic recovery. And physical exercise can be recovery for mental stresses. So you're undergoing, there's lots of stress, there's chronic stress. We need to insert these pockets of physical exercise into the day, which will allow us to process this information on a more balanced, even level. So that's advice that's across the board. Doesn't matter what you're going through. Like everybody, parents watching this, hopefully you're taking notes here as well, and that this is something you also take seriously and you can actually start doing on that regular basis. Do it as a family. It's a wonderful thing to be doing. So physical exercise is number 1. Take care of your nutrition as well. I'm not going to lecture to you, tell you what you should and shouldn't be eating, but the more sugar you're eating, the more processed foods you're eating, the harder it's going to be for your brain to be functioning optimally. The more likely it is that you're going to have these ups and downs in your energy levels if you're eating lots of food like that. Doesn't mean you have to stop, doesn't mean you can't eat chocolate and biscuits and cake and fun stuff, but just be mindful with how much you are eating. Balance it out with the good nutrition, because that's going to be really, really important for supporting your brain health, supporting your emotional well-being, and supporting your ability to get through this. Who knows, you might even set up some good healthy habits that you can continue with after this is come to some kind of resolution. Who knows what that's going to look like. I mentioned about getting outdoors as well. If you can get outdoors to exercise, then fantastic. But if you're kind of in the house, then try and get into the garden as much as possible. Get some vitamin D from the sun rays onto your body. Really, it's so important to have this outdoor time. Don't just be cooped up in the house all day. If you've got the chance to get out while the weather's good, then take advantage of that. Make sure you do it, because vitamin D has been well known to be an influence in mental health as well, and it's why some people find that the winter time is really difficult. They struggle a lot more with it's called seasonal affective disorder, SAD. And so if you struggle with that, then absolutely this is the biggest time, most important time to be getting outside as much as you can. If you can't get outside, if you live in a flat and you don't have a garden, then at least have windows cracked open so you can get some fresh air coming in. So you're kind of connected to the outside as much as possible. But all of these things, think of them not just as things that are good to do. Think of them as being something that's going to support you, your mental health, your ability to cultivate this resilient attitude and positive mindset in the days and weeks to come. Okay, a couple more. Talked a little bit about reframing there right at the beginning of the session today. Reframing really is about looking at how this could be an opportunity for you. That's not to play down the gravity of the situation and the things that you've lost. Maybe this is an opportunity at the same time to identify strengths within yourself that you didn't realize that you previously had. You have to be ready to look for these, to search for the meaning within the mess that we're going through at the moment. It's not always going to be obvious, but think about how you're growing as an individual, as a young adult. How are you kind of growing with what you're living through at the moment? But also, you've got probably some more time on your hands at the moment than you had previously, and it doesn't mean you have to. Doesn't mean you have to be using it productively every second of every day, but maybe this is an opportunity to actually do something productive for at least some of that time. And maybe it's an opportunity to learn a new skill, a musical instrument, to practice something, to work on skills like if you're football in the garden, or hockey skills, or there's probably something that you're into, or you've maybe wanted to get into in a while, and there's some small micro element of that skill that you could develop given a time. Build it into a routine, which is the next point they're going to come on to. But stick with this reframing for a second. Think about how you can reframe this as an opportunity to learn new skills, to grow and to develop as an individual whilst remaining connected to the seriousness and the reality of the situation. The fifth thing to talk about is routine, and this is something that I think is really, really important, because routine has changed so much in the last couple of weeks. If you've just been, like I said, I've got 3 kids, they've been off school for the last week, and we're sort of making some sort of routine, kind of making it happen, but we're a week into things at the moment. They still got work to do, they've got study to do, but it's obviously less than it would be if they were in the classroom at school. And that's going to be the same for you as well. So you'll probably have had notifications from the school, I'm sure, to continue working. Like if you're working towards A levels in particular, and I've seen this message being shared, and quite rightly so. If you're working towards A levels and you still have study to do, and you still need to be at a certain level to thrive on the course at university that you want to get onto, then if you just stop working now because you're not taking the exams anymore, then you're probably going to find it harder at university than you really need to. So even if you're only doing 50% of what you should be doing or you would be doing if you're at school, it's still well worth building into your routine some work that you're doing, and it'll give you a sense of thing, but there are things that you can control. I'm sure you've heard stories about people panic buying in supermarkets, shelves being stripped bare, and a lot of the panic buying, whether it's the only reason why this is the situation or not, I think there are other reasons for it as well. But one of the reasons people have been buying more than normal is because it's trying to grasp a hold of some small area of control in a world that we have so much uncontrol is so much out of our control. So for you, thinking about what routines you can get into that includes some study is going to be vital as a part of your resilience and mindset strategy to move forwards. So think about what you can do as setting up that routine, a morning routine. What time you're going to get up in the morning, what time you're going to get going with doing your first block of study, what time you're going to be taking lunch. Build as much of a routine into this as possible and see if you can create something that you can actually thrive in, and not just try and survive under. The final thing that I want to talk to you today about and I've got a couple of notices to give you at the end as well. Sounds like an assembly. A couple of things I want to say that will hopefully be of benefit and value to you as well. And again, if you just will say at this point, if you have questions, then post them in the chat as well. I can see a couple of thumbs up have come through already. And if you have questions, I'll try and answer them at the end. But I've got one more thing to talk about, and that is around connection. I mentioned at the beginning about the importance of continuing to feel, to have the courage to talk to people about how you feel, and don't be put off by the fact that we're all in the same boat. We're all going through this together. You just have to man up, keep your chin up, be strong. Like, that's not sound advice. Okay? It's great if that's where you're at the moment and you've got this stiff upper lip and all the rest of it. But actually, if you're feeling a bit struggly, if you're feeling like you're not really coping very well with this, then don't keep it to yourself. You've got to share this with somebody else, with somebody you trust. As I said before, it doesn't have to be on social media, big broadcast, and you're hoping somebody's going to come along and give you virtual hugs. Like, share this with a real person over the phone, over FaceTime, in real life if it's a member of your household, or over the phone to an anonymous helpline if that's what you need. But don't feel like you have to deal with this by yourself, because you absolutely don't. I've spoken to so many of my coaching clients, which is what I mainly do. I coach people who work in high pressure positions, or are in situations where they feel like they're struggling and they need to kind of reconnect with who they are and their sense of self. And a lot of people are struggling at the moment. Like, a lot of grown-ups are struggling, not just kids. This is something that's affecting everybody, I think. And one of the things that's helping the people who I'm working with more than anything is their ability to reach out and say, hey, look, I'm not feeling great at the moment. I'm struggling a little bit. And just by doing that, it's like, it's like a release valve, pressure release valve. So I really do strongly encourage you to do that as well. When I talk about connection, though, we're in a period here of self-isolation. It's like we've been naughty and we've been told we're grounded for the next 3 weeks, right? And, we're all going through this process, and it's social isolation, but actually we want to be socially connected as much as possible. It's physical isolation, but we want to be socially connected. And it's, to imagine what this would have been like 10, 15 years ago when we didn't have technology like this, the ability to be able to kind of live stream, the ability to do FaceTimes and chats and speak to people in video in real time. Like we're lucky in many respects. There's something for your gratitude log, that we have the technology that allows us to do this. But connect with people around you. It doesn't have to be just about telling them how you feel. Try to keep it normal as well. Have normal conversations. Try and avoid getting into too many conversations where you're just sharing about how terrible the situation is. It can feel very tempting to do that, and it can feel like you're getting it off your chest. But it can also be quite unproductive, and it can be you can feel like you're being enabled if you're getting into lots of these conversations, and it can make it worse. So be mindful of how much you allow yourself, as I said in one of my earlier points, exposure to these kinds of conversations. So there's a balance. You want to be talking about how you're feeling. You want to be there for your friends, but you've also got to protect yourself. There's a wonderful Bruce Lee quote that I often use, which is that your mind is a fertile garden, and you can choose to feed the flowers, or you can choose to feed the weeds. And we've got to choose to feed the flowers here. The weeds are going to be there. We've got to pluck them out. We've got to be mindful of them. Acknowledge that they're going to be there. We can't stop them from growing, but we have to be, we don't want to pay too much attention to them. So if we get into these conversations where we're being dragged into all the, my goodness, isn't it terrible situations, then it can actually make things worse and not better. So be careful with how much of your attention you pay to these kinds of conversations as well. So just a very quick recap on the 6 things that I talked about there. First of all, stress awareness, being tuning into the things that do stress you and are triggering for you, and that might be other people in your household, and you need to be mindful of that as well. But very, very frequently, it's the 24/7 news barrage of bad information or bad news. It's social media. These are some of the things that can create stress triggers and create anxiety as well. So identify what your stress triggers are and do something to try and minimize that, to protect yourself from that. Protect your mind, not just by minimizing that. This is the second point, not just by minimizing your exposure here, but also by practicing gratitude and trying to rebalance our perspectives here. So practice gratitude on a regular daily basis if you can. We had a go at doing that earlier as well. Practice self-care. Build this into a routine. So physical exercise, meditation even. Now, if you're thinking, oh, what can I do with all this extra time? Try meditation. Go into the Headspace app or the Calm app and try one of their guided free meditation trials so you can actually see how it feels. And maybe this is something that will really help you get through this in a positive way as well. Take care of your nutrition. Doesn't have to be perfect, but don't let this be a reason to start indulging in foods that you wouldn't normally eat. Try and pull this back, not because it's the right thing to do, that you should eat well, but because actually how you fuel your body, the nutrients that you give your body will influence how you feel as well, and the thoughts that you have. There's a big connection between your nutrient intake and the way you're able to process information in a positive way. Hydration levels as well. Make sure you're drinking plenty of water, minimizing the amount of caffeine and stimulant-laced drinks that you're consuming. I'm thinking Red Bull, Monster, and other energy drinks like that, but also coffee and tea if you happen to be drinking lots of that. I've got to be very careful with my coffee consumption. Like, I love coffee, but like if I have too much of it, it really disrupts my sleep, makes me anxious, unproductive in the afternoon, and it's just makes it worse and worse and worse because I can't sleep. So I get up in the morning and I'm tired and I want more coffee. So don't let yourself get drawn into those kind of cycles. Next, we talk about reframing, controlling the controllables, looking for opportunities within all of this as well. What can you learn about yourself, and what can you learn to do as maybe a new skill with the extra time and the change in routine that you have? And that was the 5th point as well, is routine. Try and establish some kind of routine, whether it's around studies, around exercise, building hobbies, new skills, maybe even volunteering to help others as well around you. And finally is connecting with other people, making sure you stay connected in a way that's meaningful and positive and constructive, and doesn't turn into a bit of a whinge fest where you end up enabling each other and actually making it worse for yourselves and for your friends as well. Okay, so a couple of comments coming through there. Thanks, great tips, some more thumbs up. So hopefully that's been of some use to you. Like I said, there's something else I want to offer you as well. I've been speaking to a very good friend of mine who's a clinical psychologist, and I've done some work with in the past, a lady called Dr. Vicky Barnes. And I was telling her about this, and she's got some really good ideas as well around kind of specific stress management techniques as well. And also cultivating continuing with the work I've done here and the groundwork that I've laid, but a growth mindset. And what I really want to do is to invite you to another session on Wednesday, and I'll do this only if there's a kind of a call for it. If enough people want to do it, then you can put comments on this video and let me know, and I'll get it out through my usual channels as well. But if that is something that you think would be of value to you, another session where we can get into a bit more details with somebody who's as skilled and as experienced as my clinical psychologist friend Vicky is. You know, I've been doing this for years, but she's got a lot of experience working in this field as well, and she's got massive amounts of value to add as well. And she's agreed to come on and do a live, both of us together at the same time. She's down in Exeter or Devon. I'm here in Tame, or Long Crendon, should I say. And we'll come on at the same time for half an hour, 45 minutes, and go through a bit of a kind of informal interview chat. And if anybody wants to join us for that, then it'll be on the same page here. And just come back at midday Wednesday response. So please do let me know if this has been useful, and if you think that it's going to be something that would be useful to you. So we've got a comment coming up there. If anybody wants to know more about the idea of a gratitude log after the webinar is over, there's a science channel named something I can't read that talks about the idea in their dissatisfaction video. Okay, well, thanks for that. Spawn of can't read that either, but thank you for whoever left that comment. And yeah, a couple of others said the same thing about gratitude. Gratitude, by the way, it's not a new thing. It's been around for some time. As I said, I've been teaching gratitude logs maybe the last 6-7 years, keeping them myself as well. But as I said, it's been studied for over 20 years now, and has been used all over the world, from the special forces to regular army to education, kind of all over the place. So it's definitely something that's worth investigating and exploring further. We can get into that in a bit more detail, maybe with some more examples in the next session, if that's something that we decide is worth going ahead with. So I'm going to finish that there. I just want to finish off by saying, once again, thank you very much for tuning in. It's been fantastic to have the opportunity to share some of these ideas with you. Please do leave a comment if you found it useful, and hopefully we'll put something together, and I'll speak to you again Wednesday next week. But take care of yourself, take care of each other as well. Stay strong, stay safe, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye for now.